Thank you for joining us today on Pendant and Ring. This is part 6 of The Lives of Tudor and Stuart Princesses by Agnes Strickland. Chapter 2. The day of the patron saint of France occurred most opportunely for the royal marriage. On the anniversary of St. Denis, Monday, October 9th, at the Cathedral of St. Wulfran, Abbeville, the marriage ceremony took place, which made for the first time since the Norman conquest a Princess of England Queen of France. A cardinal officiated at the marriage and sang the High Mass. The royal bride retired to her state apartments and, according to the custom of France, dined privately in a room with certain princesses of the blood who were seated at the end of her table. The Duke of Valois, Francis I, entertained all the ambassadors in a separate chamber, while the rest of the queen's train, lords, ladies, and maidens, were sumptuously feasted in the great hall. That very day the King of France commenced himself to his young queen's good graces by gifts of the splendid jewels he had in store for her. He gave her a marvelous great pointed diamond with a ruby almost 2 inches long without foil, which was valued by some of the court at 10,000 marks. The next day the king presented his bride with a remarkable jewel, being a ruby 2.5 inches in length and as thick as a man's finger, hanging by 2 chains of gold at every end. These marvelous gifts only preceded a measure which nearly broke the young queen's heart. The Duke of Norfolk was anxious to return to England. He therefore, in concert with the King of France, had a council called of the Queen's new French officials to sit in judgment on the number of the English ladies which were to be retained in her service, and to decide on those who were to return to England. To the consternation of the young queen, she found that all her English ladies, excepting young Anne Boleyn and 3 more girls of the like age, were warned to make ready to return with the Duke of Norfolk. Her governess, Lady Guildford, her motor Guildford, was among these banished friends. No doubt a scene approaching to the tragic ensued at their departure, for Mary, a day or 2 afterwards, penned 2 letters, one to her royal brother, the other to the all-powerful Wolsey, earnestly setting forth her wrongs and demanding instant redress. Her epistle to Henry VIII is as follows. My good brother, as heartily as I can commend me to your grace, marveling much that I never heard from you since our departing, so often as I have sent and written to you. And now I am left alone, in effect, for on the morn next after my marriage my chamberlain, with all other men servants, were discharged, and in likewise my motor Guildford, with other my women and maidens, except such as never had experience and knowledge how to advertise, advise, and give me counsel in time of need, which is, it is to be feared, will be more shortly than your grace thought at the time of my departing, as my motor Guildford can more plainly show you grace than I can write, to whom I beseech you give credence. And, if it be by any means possible, I humbly require you to cause my motor Guildford to repair hither once again, for else, if any chance hap other than well, I shall not know where or of whom to ask any good counsel to your pleasure, nor yet to my own profit. I marvel much that my Lord of Norfolk would at all times so lightly grant everything at their requests here. I am well assured that when ye know the truth of everything, as my motor Guildford can show you, ye would full little have thought I should be thus entreated. Would to God that my Lord of York, Wolsey, Archbishop of York, had come with me into the room of Norfolk, for then I am sure I should not have been left as I am now. And thus I bid your grace farewell, as ever did Prince, and wishing you more heart ease than I have now, from Abbeville, the 12th of October. Give greetings to my motor Guildford, from your loving sister, Mary, Queen of France. Norfolk was singularly unfortunate in his office of escort to the Princess Mary's eldest sister. Queen Margaret Tudor had denounced his discourtesy and inattention to her interests at the court of Scotland, especially his cruelty in rending from her the same motor Guildford, whose name comes in at the end of every paragraph in the royal letter, which is, by the way, a very good composition in nothing inferior to those of Wolsey, Sir Thomas More, Margaret of Valois, or any other of her celebrated contemporaries. And this is no slight praise for the ability of a young girl in her 16th year, thrown, as circumstances prove, wholly on her own resources in regard to advice. She could have had no assistance in composition, for Anne Boleyn, though not so young as general history chooses to assert, had few years' experience and was incapable of giving counsel to her distressed mistress, a circumstance it will be perceived the Queen alludes to in her letter. Another eloquent epistle was indited by the forlorn bride of France to Wolsey. The commencement recapitulates the same facts of the heartbreaking dismissal of the English ladies, chamberlains, and other officials. "My motor Goldford was likewise discharged," continues the young queen to Wolsey, "by whom, as ye know, the king and you willed me in any wise always to be counselled. But for anything that I might do, in no wise might I have any grant for her abode here, which I assure you, my lord, is much for my discomfort, besides many discomforts that ye would fill little have thought. I have not yet seen any lady or gentlewoman in France so necessary for me as she is, nor yet so meet to do the king my brother service as she is. And for my part, O Lord, as ye love the king my brother and me, find the means that she may in all haste come to me hither again. For I had as lief lose the winning I shall have in France, as lose her counsel when I shall lack it. I am sure the noblemen and gentlemen can show you more than becometh me to write concerning this matter. And albeit my lord of Norfolk neither dealed best with me nor with her at this time, yet I pray you always be good lord to her. And would to God my brother had been so good as to have had you with me hither when I had my lord of Norfolk. And thus fare ye well, my lord. Written in Abbeville, this 12th day of October. My lord, I pray you to give credence to my motor Goldford in my sorrows, which she shall have delivered. Your own, while I live, Mary. Doubtless the young Queen of France expected that the statecraft of Wolsey, the pugnacity of her brother, and the knight-errantry of the chivalry of England would have all been put into action to effect the restoration of her motor Goldford. She was in her letter astute enough to put in a word on the great utility Mother Goldford would have been to her native sovereign if she were a resident at the French court. A fact that the wise French monarch evidently knew full well, because persons in her station are the most efficient of spies and political agents, for which reason he hastened her departure with the rest of her colleagues. Hall, the contemporary English chronicler, is pathetic on the subject of the dismissal of Mary's train. It is to be hoped the disasters he recounts are merely flights of his rhetoric. Some of these attendants had remained in the service of the young princess on scant allowances, hoping that she would be well married some day and able to provide for them. Others had been at much expense to wait on her to France, and now returned destitute, which many took to heart, insomuch some died by the way returning, and some fell mad. The very morning on which Mary describes herself distressed, King Louis had presented her with a wonderful diamond tablet, or table cut, with a surprising pearl, quite round, hanging to it. The jewel was the noted one called Le Miroir de Neptune, which Francois I afterward would have redeemed at any price. Louis, in the course of that day, gave his mourning bride a shower of other costly gems, priceless diamonds, and rubies set in rings, which were pressed with gallantry on her fingers whensoever he saw sad looks or tears making their appearance from Motor Goldford, to whom, as will be shown, his French Majesty had taken no slight aversion. The Queen is continually with him, wrote the resident ambassador, Worcester, the day succeeding the doleful parting of her English household, of whom King Louis maketh as much as it is possible for any man to make of a lady. The King of France lingered at Abbeville, although when he was dismissing my Lady Moder Goldford, he had declared he was desirous of moving onwards to Paris, and that he had agreed with his good brother Henry VIII that the Duke of Norfolk and the English supernumeraries were not to advance farther than Abbeville. He took a fit of gout, and was glad of the quiet of the provincial town to indulge in the society of his fair young wife, who nursed him in his malady. Her coronation at St. Denis, and the tumultuous rejoicings attending her entry of Paris, the processions, the tournaments, and the endless robings and sittings in state for long hours in the open air, however pleasant in anticipation to the young beauty he had wedded, were shrunk from by King Louis with foreboding apprehension. Thank you for joining us today. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Pendant and Ring.